Okay.
Hello. Welcome to Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, may even be Monday evening because I see we've got a few international folks on the call as well. So welcome. Thanks for joining us to the next Chameleon Live. We're talking about AI today, the current trends in L&D and potentially some possibilities that are to come in the future as well. So I've just been speaking to our lovely guest in the back, in our green room, I think we call it, Tom. Geez, we get some great guests on this show. I'm really stoked the sorts of people that we do get to come along and join these sessions to have a chat. So joining me today, Rustica Lamb. I had the pleasure of actually meeting Rustica a couple of years ago at an event up in Auckland, and we were lucky enough to share a little glass of champagne, which Rustica kindly brought along to the event. So thanks, Rustica. I still do remember that. So Rustica, just a quick intro into who Rustica is and a little bit about her background. So, with a background in digital education, Rustica is the founder behind Bloom Learning Technologies, a company many of you may have come across. I know you're particularly active on LinkedIn with some awesome content, Rustica. Bloom is an acclaimed global learning company specialising in learning technology. And I have it known that their mission is to significantly reduce the expenses associated with e-learning, all while aiding organisations in crafting captivating learning journeys that align with their business objectives and budgetary constraints. Now that seems really well worded and crafted there, Rustica. It looks like ChatGPT probably didn't take a part in putting that together.
No, that's a couple of years old, that website. So it was it wasn't pre-Chat GPT, but certainly before me using it, that's for sure.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for joining us. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank
You've
you.
got some wonderful insights that we've been discussing over the past couple of weeks that I know you'll bring to the fore today, and our audience will benefit from that as well. So welcome to everyone on the call today. I know there's some new folks on the call, some new customers of Chameleon, and also some people who have just about joined every one of our Chameleon Live over the last sort of 18 months or so. So I appreciate you taking an hour out of your day. Looking forward to the next sort of 57, 56 minutes and bringing some insights to you and hopefully creating a bit more of a discussion around this in our community as well. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you've got any questions, we have a Q&A, which should be in the same place that I'm seeing it, top right on your screen. You can also jump into the audience tab there and put any questions you want to ask either Rustica, probably more so Rustica, or myself, of course. So feel free to drop them in there as we go. We've got a few topics we want to cover off, but we'll certainly have time to answer any questions the wider audience has as well. So before we kick off, Rustica, I thought I'd get to learn a little bit more about you. I know you you partake in the odd champagne as we did in Auckland, but do you do much cooking? Are you over the long weekend? I know you haven't been feeling too well of late, but do you like to get in the kitchen and rustle up a meal every now and again?
Well, I do, and I was just saying I went on a retreat, well, actually it was an executive program, but it was a very
Mhm.
health focused. So we had our genetics testing done, and we had bloods tested done, all this testing done. So
Mhm.
actually, my cooking habits in the kitchen have changed significantly in the last 5 weeks. And one
Okay.
of them is that my gluten intolerance is very low. So despite having no symptoms, I now do a whole lot of different cooking in the kitchen. So yes, I have been doing cooking in the kitchen, which is not what I expect
Okay.
to be talking about on an AI podcast.
Trust me, this is going places
It's
you straight.
relevant. Okay, good.
Oh, it's not relevant at all. But anyway, okay. So, quick question. Let's say we would have a meal, or you'd invite someone around for a meal. What are you going to whip up for dinner? What's one of
Well,
your favourites or your go tos?
Well, first of all, I'd start with salad because you're supposed to eat to stop glucose spikes, which are very nasty for you. I would have make sure that we had some fibre first. So I'd make a lovely fresh lettuce, tomato, and cucumber salad with a sprinkle of avocado oil. Then I'd give you some
Lovely.
protein, and then I'd give you the sugar. You're not allowed to have the sugar until you've had your fibre and your protein, and then I'd make you go out for a walk. So that's what I would
Oh,
do. Yeah.
okay. Good. I like the direction of the walk at the end as well. Something that probably I don't do enough of. And then last quick question before we get into the good stuff. You're going to invite three people, dead or alive, anyone. Who would you invite to this dinner?
My goodness, that is one question and a half. Anyone,
We won't we
right
won't
off the
judge
top of my
order.
head.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Uh, from an AI point of view, I'd invite Ethan Mollick. I think he's amazing. He's
Note
a
that
big
name
follower
down.
of him on LinkedIn, although I don't have a LinkedIn profile anymore because I got hacked and deleted at the end of last year, and I've been fighting LinkedIn because you can't talk to anybody. So you note that I haven't been on LinkedIn for a very long time. So I'd invite Ethan. I'd probably invite Roger Hamilton, who's been a mentor of mine for a very long time, incredible entrepreneur, social entrepreneur. And then I would probably love to invite like the head of UNHCR, so the head of global refugees, to actually, because it's a big passion of mine and trying to
Mm,
find a way then in the work that we do or the work that I do, how do we support those people from a refugee focus? So there's been just such an increase in the last 10 years. It's horrendous. So yeah, that'd be the
mm.
three people I'd invite.
Happy days. Okay, it sounds like a really interesting dinner. I wouldn't mind coming along to that if you can save a space for me as well. Your
Sure.
your list your list is a lot more interesting than mine, I can tell you. Right, so we'll get into it now. So first, I guess question or topic of discussion I've got, Rustica, is so we created a bit of a blog early in the year to try and help our audience understand how AI was going to impact the world of L&D. A couple of the key predictions we made, and you might agree or disagree with her, is not sure. To come out of this article was that we felt AI was going to enhance data analysis and reporting. We also felt there was going to be, I guess, a steady movement and a push towards generative e-learning content tools, and also the fact that AI was going to support our learning strategy and how we create that strategy as well.
Hmm.
This question for you is: do you believe in this notion of the limitless possibilities when it comes to AI? And I guess where do you think the real value of AI lies in the world of learning?
Mm. So I think there's a couple of things there. Like you talk about AI for data, content development, and strategy development.
Mhm.
I think that unless we are being human about it in the first place, we need to actually think that data is important.
Mhm.
We need to think about the tools that we use and be open to using new tools. And then, do we actually even write strategies anyway? So I'll deal with each of those sort of individually, and then I'll talk about the limitless potential question. So
Mm.
I think data and evaluation from like, this is just from my 20, 30, well, probably more like 30 years experience these days, getting into my 50s now. Um, Data's never been a big focus for a lot of L&D teams, so and that whole reporting and because it's just limited to what's in the LMS. So have they completed? What's the progress? So it's really interesting that's the case. Quite a while ago, I did some psych testing of a couple of L&D teams, and because like preference wise, personality wise, they're very in that creative space, intuitive, like to create. So when you've got a natural preference to be able to want to be creative, that's not always the people that also want to be looking at data either. So for me, the
Mm.
biggest option that I think if I was in L&D today, I would be going, actually, well, where's Power BI? What can I plug in? It's not just the LMS data, like where's all the performance data? But I very rarely see dashboards that say like here is learning related to any sort of data. Um, now coming up, I was just looking at an AI platform the other day called Domo. That looked like very much a drag and drop, put your data in here. Haven't had a chance to play with it yet. But, maybe when the tools are easier to use, maybe data will become more important. So I think that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think L&D people would love to play with new tools. So I think that that's probably where most of, and most of what I was seeing on LinkedIn when I was allowed in the door, um, were people were actually like looking at the different tools, and certainly as an ex learning designer myself, that was sort of, I love playing with the tools, and I still do. Like in my keynotes, I'll just like, right, check this new tool out, check this new tool out. This is
Yeah,
my
yeah.
thing. And the same with strategy. It's interesting. This probably 5 or 6 years ago, we held an event that had like 70 or so people in it come and learn how to write a learning strategy. And when I actually asked the 70 plus people, how many of you actually got one? Only 3 people put their hand up. So I don't know whether it's
Right.
people are too busy creating content, or they're not strategic, or we had a different audience in the group. But I actually don't see a lot of written learning strategies around either. So I think there's those 3 overlays to it. So because obviously ChatGPT and all of the different tools out there today, you can create content, you could write a strategy, and then there's also the tools out there that will actually analyze your data. But again, you've
Mm,
actually got, to me, that's got to be in a strategy. Like, how do we create content? How do we do that around here? What are the tools we use? What methodologies do we use? What best practice do we use? And are we even writing a strategy in the first place? Because a strategy will also tell you what data you're going to need for reporting, etc. So yeah, so it is interesting. So I'm not sure if that answers that part of your question.
yeah, no, it does. It does. It does. I think it's interesting. You talk about that strategy piece there, and the fact that event you went to, there was a very small part of the audience who have actually gone down that path. And I think I was watching a video earlier, and it was of a Harvard small business professor, and what he was saying was there's 3 prongs to AI, and the first was, um, he was looking at it more from a B to C type model. So I'll park the first point because that was around creating consumer content, but the next point he made was really interesting, and that was around using AI tools as your thought partner. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than the content generator per se, it was almost using it as someone. And this sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? But this is the way the world's going. As almost having a conversation, with the tool to create those ideas for something like a learning strategy.
Absolutely, that's exactly right, and it's then learning how to prompt that. And I think one of the links you
Mm,
sent me was, how many times are people prompting? Well, if you're only asking it one question, I sometimes when I'm prompting, I'll be asking 8, 9, 15 different questions on the same chat to actually get to the answer and get to the right one, and make me a table and bullet point that and summarize that. I mean, from a learning strategy point of view, really the first thing you'd be asking is, give me an outline for a learning strategy for a company that looks like this with these number of people, blah, 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 blah. So,
mm,
and then you then just drill down into that and just say, okay, well, so you talk about doing a learning needs analysis. Give me a plan on how to do that. So, and I think that's the
mm.
thing. Like, it's so interesting, I think. And when we start to think about skilling, upskilling, and reskilling, I've never ever seen a skills gap analysis done to the detail of a job description, and I think that's because people just go, "How on earth do I start with that? How do I take a
Yeah.
job description and make skills out of it? How do I then actually then rate these? Do I have to do it on paper? It's just too hard for people, and I think that's where it
Mm,
gets to. And that's when everything gets generic and people become order takers, and then they complain they don't have a head at the table, a seat at the table. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all sort of interlinked.
yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, but absolutely. Like, for example, though, there's a platform out there called Course Factory. Brilliant.
Mhm.
Like, it just
Mhm.
that'll do your learning objectives. It does your modules. Gives you content. It tells you deliverables. Like, I mean, that probably is just using a ChatGPT plugin, but it gives you the entire structure. So you just from a
Wow.
course. So it's
Wow.
like you don't even need to prompt it. You just need to give it a brief, and off it goes. And but as you say, you still have to be thinking. You still have to be the human that's going, actually, well, that doesn't quite make sense. But it's 80% there. Let me tweak it with my expertise and experience, and then can use that. So you can then free up a whole lot of time then where do you put that time? Do you hopefully become of higher value and doing higher value things?
mm,
So
mm,
yeah,
mm.
making things more
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, another example is Ask Your PDF. Brilliant. We got asked to do some compliance training for anti-money laundering, and they must know the law. It's like 377 pages of the law of anti-money laundering. It's like, well, why don't we make why don't we make a Trivial Pursuit game? So basically, just upload and ask the questions, and then there it is. Like it's just done in 10 minutes. To make a Trivial Pursuit board game
Mm.
would just would have taken weeks and weeks and weeks, and it didn't. It took half an hour. So you make the learning experience a whole lot better as well.
Yeah, and I think so. There's a few parts to what you're saying there. I think one of the threads I'm picking up is it's using it in smart ways as that assistant or as that that content thought partner I called it, and then spending time on the right stuff. Right,
Yeah.
and spending times on those more creative areas because there is a view, right? And I'm not breaking your ground here by any stretch, but and I think the numbers they're all over the shop. But I did read an article around with the advent of AI and the push from it into the market, and I think this sort of happened. The big push was around that sort of November 2022 mark. That's when this sort of took off and started to the J curve started to happen. There's that fear in the market that that 300 million jobs, are on the chopping block, and I think that's what a lot of people are talking about. But I think, again, I don't necessarily agree with that because you still need the human to create the prompts, right? The inputs that they're receiving in terms of these models, they are driven by humans, and they're reviewed by humans as well, as you've just touched
Mhm.
on.
Mhm. That's exactly
Mm.
right, and that's where that lawyer got caught because he put something into ChatGPT, took it into court, but didn't check it, and it was wrong.
That was
So,
completely wrong.
and it was completely wrong. So if they'd checked that, actually source checked that, that wouldn't have
Mm,
wouldn't have been an issue. So,
mm,
yeah,
mm,
that's
mm,
exactly right. So, and I think, and then look, there are companies out there that will actually run a report, and I saw an example just recently for a company here in New Zealand, 5,000 people, entertainment business, that actually said, here are the top three jobs that will actually be impacted. Here is your dollar amount, was over $5 million actually in savings that would make, and over 2
wow.
million hours saved. And it said, here's the top three roles. So but it says what will be augmented and what will be automated and what percentage of those jobs. So I think
Right.
as L&D people, we need to start looking at a job level, what are we doing? Because you're right, there's going to be a whole lot of change, but no one knows what that change will be. So there
Mm,
are companies starting to emerge that will actually say, actually, well, these for your business and your industry, these are the roles. So why would you keep creating content for training now when 60% of that role will be automated? Do you know what I mean?
mm.
It's like
Yes, yes.
and
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
yeah, and it's you've got to get the data. I mean, data's become. I mean, I'm just not a data person. I'm so the opposite of that. Like I'm a people person, and as I said, like this retreat that I've just been on, we were talking before about the aura ring and the data, and it's just changed. So, like, I don't hardly drink bubbles anymore, and it's like that's very sad because that was my whole identity. Because I see what it does to my sleep, and I see what
Yeah.
because and then I also found I've got the Alzheimer's gene, so you need sleep. So sleep's the priority, right? One glass of wine,
Mm,
one glass of bubbles affects that. And I'm going, actually, if I can change my behavior overnight,
mm,
but by something that was in my identity for 30, 40 years, not maybe not 40, 30 years, we must be able to apply that same logic to business. And I think that is around having the data. And
mm,
we just need almost a stop and go, right, what roles do we think are going to change? And then actually we need to start looking at our strategy and therefore what
mm,
roles we're going to start keep making training material for or development material for. But you need the
mm.
data.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
is
yeah.
interesting that there are there's probably three or four quite large businesses just recently have actually been constricting their L&D team, but I don't think it's AI related. It's something I haven't quite worked out what's going on, but there is certainly some movement going on, which might be just
Okay.
be general sort of digital transformation type stuff. I'm not sure. Haven't got to the bottom of that one yet.
Yeah. Well, just to dive into that as well, just to go into that, and I'm going to read this because I always get it a little bit wrong, and I want to make sure I put this in the right way. So I was having a chat with a customer who we're looking to partner with in Belgium, and her name's Evelina. She's part of a massive. Don't know if Evelina's on the call today, but part of a massive engineering group, multinational, and she's seen some really interesting stuff come out in Europe around AI. And she was the first one to say this to me, and I've seen it numerous times now on LinkedIn and what have you. But she said AI is not it's not going to replace people necessarily, but it's going to replace people who use. Sorry, I'm gonna start again. I've got it wrong, and I've written it down. So AI is not going to replace people per se, but AI is going to replace people that don't use AI.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely, 100% agree. Yeah,
right, haven't I? Yeah. Because
AI will not.
yeah, there you go.
I was just going to say the same thing. It's like AI won't replace your jobs. People who use AI will replace your jobs. That's
Absolutely.
exactly
Yeah.
what it'll be. And I think we talked about this when we sort of first talked a couple of weeks ago. Because I've been around for a long time, this time feels like when e-learning came in back in sort of the late 2000s. And the people
Mm,
that stuck their head in the sand, a lot of them lost their jobs, some of them lost their businesses, some of them lost their marriages and their houses. And it feels very similar that this shift is the same. And I think if people don't get on board with it, I know that some people who that I know that have had their businesses are in their sort of mid 60s now. They've just gone, actually, I'm just going to do something else now because it's just like
yeah.
this is just too much for
Don't
me.
want to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because it is massive, and I think it's almost like the tsunami's coming, and the waves. When a tsunami, the waves go out. It's just started to go out, so I think it's going to be so much bigger. Which to me is very exciting.
Yes.
We don't know what's happening, and it's a bit like when they invented steam and the steam engine. That just birthed this a whole lot of new industries. You had like transport and railways and distribution, and all these new
Mm,
things appeared. So even though
mm,
things will change, there will be all these new things. And there's actually a website called 100 Jobs of the Future. Very, very cool. You go on there and you can actually sort of
okay.
look at it from education or health or engineering or whatever. But, start to look at those sorts of things. And I've even, when I had a LinkedIn profile, have now changed my profile to AI educator because that is one of the jobs of the future. And it's really only doing what
Okay.
I've ever been doing. But, the people need to know. They don't have the time to sit around like and play with different tools like I have, the ability to do. So, yeah.
Mm. No, I think that's it's easy to say that, right? In terms of, but I completely agree in that this is exciting. Let's look at this through a positive lens. My father, who's well into his 60s, he started dabbling in it, and I thought, far out. Well, if you can do it, I need to get onto it too, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but I think it's about yeah, there might be some jobs that change, that they need to be augmented through AI, but there's also going to be a hell of a lot of job creation as well. Um,
Yes.
I was reading about a company called Prolific. Have you come across Prolific? They
Hmm.
they they're in the research side of AI. So companies like Oxford, Google, a few other big players reach out to Prolific and they say, "Hey, we want you to test our AI models with real people." So people are going in there as testers and
Yeah.
testing the AI. So and bringing that human aspect back to all of these tools and platforms. So there's going to be a lot of job creation as well. I expect. I'm
Mm.
not too honest, but
Which is where, like, what skills do we need? And the UN Economic Forum put a really good report out called "Future of Jobs," and they talked about the
hmm
top three skills. Number one, critical thinking. Number
hmm
two, creativity, and number three, self-efficacy skills. So, and self-efficacy skills being like resilience and ability to be able to actually manage change and ambiguity. So it's like, well, what are we doing to support people if jobs are changing? How do we actually basically help people grow those skills themselves?
mm
Critical thinking, creativity, and self-efficacy. So Yeah,
Mm,
that's something
mm,
else I think we need to be thinking about.
mm. Geez, you're dropping knowledge bombs left, right, and centre here, Rustica. I'm taking notes myself.
And
Um,
sorry, I'm looking at the questions going, yikes, it's 40 minutes. I think we've done question one.
no. It's fine. It's fine. This is going off into nice places for me anyway. Hopefully, the audience
Okay,
is getting a lot of value from this as well, but I'm pretty sure they will be.
okay, good.
On that, please put your questions in as well in the chat team because we are, 26, 27 minutes in, excuse me. And if you do want to ask any questions, please dump them in there and we'll do our best to get to those as well. So, Rustica, I'm a keen reader like yourself, and we recently came across a study by Spark Toro, and they partner with Datos, so Datos are a company that essentially they've had permission from users on mobile phones and what have you, and desktop devices about looking about how they actually, I guess, use things like browsers and what have you on their phone and the tools they use. So they're getting all this amazing data from, I think it's 20 million odd users. Anyhow, the recent study they did in partnership, it showed a 29% drop off in Chat GPT usage since May. So Chat GPT usage being I guess, one of the most prevalent tools out there in the market, and one of the tools that sort of took off in that J curve back in November 22. And then diving into this a little bit more, in terms of looking at the numbers gathered on the most common tasks that were undertaken by users, only 11.3% of those were by uh, users doing it for professional education, and then just 7.4% went on and focused on professional content creation. So I guess the question to chuck at you, and it's a big one, is do you think generative AI's perceived usefulness was overhyped early on, and then from that, now that people are seeing it isn't as quite the silver bullet they expected, has that adoption in our industry not really taken off yet as we would expect it to?
Yeah, that was an interesting article actually, and my immediate thought with that, and I went and checked the article and I couldn't find the answer, was this is visits to openai.com, right? So this is actually to ChatGPT. So going into ChatGPT
Mm-hmm.
generally, a bit like when I talked about the steam engine sort of birthing all these like different industries, because now you can actually use a ChatGPT plugin. I was interested to see if if they were also tracking plugins, because
Right.
there's a tool called there's a platform called Futurepedia.io, which has got over, it's just growing all the time. Last time I looked, it was for 4 or 5 thousand different tools that you can use. You can type in there, I want to do text to image, I want to do text to presentation, I want to do pitch decks or whatever. Um, was this study also tracking access to the plugins? And I don't think it was, which might answer why this has gone down. So, for example, now I use Ask Your PDF quite a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I am using ChatGPT less, but I'm also then
Right.
using like Canva, which has also got the ChatGPT plugin. I'm using HeyGen to make videos, also got the chat. So I don't. So possibly that's why that's come down, is because of this massive explosion of plugins. And I was reading something the other day that if you've got a front end and you've got a developer who can put a ChatGPT front end, you can actually launch a business in 2 weeks, and a platform in 2 weeks. So the
Right.
fact that we're almost a year in, that's not surprising to me, that it's dropped down, because I don't think they were also tracking those sites with the plugins.
Right. Right. So I guess so. Conversely, um, would you so this study aside, well, not actually
Hmm.
not. Let's use the study to go from here. So, let's say it did include the plugins and the usage was still spiking. So,
Hmm.
do you feel like it hasn't necessarily been overhyped and usage is still increasing, or what's your sort of take on that?
I think some of it might have to do with the fact that so many organizations are saying, no, you can't use it. Like we've got a lot of clients that say,
Yeah.
no, can't use it. which is really interesting because you can actually have your own private chat GPT only on your own data. You can even have it on your server. It's Microsoft grade security, et cetera, et cetera. And IT teams are still saying, no, 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 wait for a white paper, white paper a year later. They will just get left
Mm,
behind, like those
mm,
organizations. But like, there's one company I know that were doing basically, click and point, record your screen, and then um, basically output a PowerPoint and a SCORM and a this and a that. They've been at that since 2012. Guide comes along like 6 months ago, and it's brilliant, and it's a
mm.
Chrome plugin, and you do it in like 5 minutes, and it's like, wow, you've got to get on board with this stuff
You get
fast.
left
So
behind.
yeah, absolutely. So I don't know whether, so to answer your question about the delay, whether it's because most people are at work most of the day, right? So if the
Mm,
companies and organizations are saying no, not yet, is it that? I'm not sure. So
mm.
that article was interesting too. They talked about first time users and when people just trying it out and then leaving. Is it the fact that people, like your dad or whatever, might go and have a play for a bit and then go, oh, I'm gone, I want to go back in my veggie garden or go tramping or traveling or whatever. Don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think there's a few things at play here. I think there's other tools out there as well now that people are looking at. So and there's been an explosion not just for content, tools like ChatGPT, but also image tools and all sorts of stuff. So I think people are trialing all these different things depending on what area of expertise they focus on.
Mm,
Um, I, yeah, you're going to say
yeah,
something on that?
yeah, it was. Because like in a couple of weeks, I'm talking to a group of electricians actually, it will be interesting. But they're business owners, and it's like, so for them, it's like, how do I make my business faster, better, more productive? What tools do I use for that? That's going to be a very different conversation that I'll have with them versus someone
Mm,
that's, say, an L&D person who is wanting to, they haven't got a budget for video, and what's the best tools so I can get some videos out there,
mm,
versus another group I'm talking to in a few weeks, HR people that they'll want to know about, okay, so from a recruitment point of view, how do we, make sure that we've got the bias out of our recruiting process if we're going to use AI tools? How
mm.
can we improve the onboarding experience, that sort of thing? So it's all very different depending, I think, on what your use case is.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think maybe again just summarising here, but I guess I can talk to some use cases of some people I work with as well. Is that there was that initial explosion of people using tools like ChatGPT, and then they thought, okay, the novelty's wearing off on this specific use case just because it's not delivering as much value as I thought it was initially. Because initially you can put a prompt in there. I tested it myself early days and said, write a blog on generative AI and how it relates to L&D. And at first you're blown away and you're like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah,
But then after the fifth time, what I started to feel is that they started to feel quite similar in terms of the tone, and there was a lot of hyperbole. Like it got to the point where I looked and I was like, I know, and I did it obviously, but I know that this has been written by ChatGPT. It has a certain flavour to it, and I was talking to Tom, who's in our marketing team, and he sort of felt the same, in that he thought all of a sudden he was getting emails from people with lots more adjectives, lots more hyperbole, and it was like, you didn't used to talk like this. Where does this come from? And so I wonder if that's been part of the move as well. Um, I also wonder as well, coming back to that point about use case, that people are a little bit more targeted with what they're using it for now. Um, like I heard a really interesting use case. I thought it was wonderful, where you had there were some business owners, some local entrepreneurs that started a fencing company and gardening, and they had a real struggle because English was their second language to actually communicate with their clients via text, email, um, digitally, whatever medium they're using. And they thought, hang on, can we use AI to augment what we're doing? And all of a sudden, their business started to increase because they could communicate with a broader audience. They could speak. They could put some of their broken English into a tool like this, and then it's coming out and using it to actually communicate more effectively or differently to an audience. So I thought that's a great use case, and that's actually increasing someone's capabilities and allowing their business to grow in really nice ways as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, and especially if they were new migrants, like I'd be delighted about that because that really supports new migrants into jobs, or if that was the case. So um,
Mm.
yeah, and I think I'm very much for social good, and I think there's so much you can do. Um, Man, there's just like last year, I was going to do this walk and basically raise development funds, create a Pokemon Go AR app, and I was going to get this, to teach English to refugees, and it was going to cost $150,000-$200,000, right?
Oh my
Well,
word!
now you can actually. I've we're talking with a I don't even know what you'd say, like a friend, if you like, or someone I know in the States. His kids, for their summer holiday, made these co-pilots that were their avatars, so their faces, using ChatGPT plugins. And when they got stuck, their avatar would talk back to them with their science questions or whatever. Now,
Far out.
because it's ChatGPT, you can just push a button and go, make that in Farsi or make that in whatever language it is. And all of a sudden, you can actually provide that as a tool to learn English to people in refugee camps. And it won't be $200,000, right? And you can just auto translate it. So it just is brilliant what we're going to be able to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of these exciting possibilities we're talking about, right? So, okay, so let's talk more about humans then. We've talked a little bit about the robots. So I think, without putting words in your mouth, I think we'd both agree that AI it's never going to truly replace humans. And I guess because we're driven by emotion, feeling, story, and that's not something AI is going to easily replace. I'm not going to say never replace because I guess we don't know what the future looks like, but it's not going to easily do it. That's for sure. Um, However, it is looking like it is going to have a place, in everything we do moving forward, at least in the business world, and more broadly, like we were just speaking about, refugees, for example, learning another language. What advice do you have for staying a little bit more human in this new world driven by AI?
Well, I would suggest that anyone on this call and anyone listening afterwards reads Mo Gowat's Scary Smart book. It is the most
Okay.
brilliant, brilliant book on what could happen. And he talks about, is it going to be dystopia or is it going to be utopia? And he talks about the fact that Superman, so if Clark Kent's parents had been evil, Superman or Clark Kent may have used his talents and skills for evil, not good. So actually, for us right now, what happens next is really up to every single one of us. So actually, how everything that's online, AI will be listening, right?
Mm.
When I go into ChatGPT, I say good morning. One morning I said kia ora, and it said kia ora. That's the New Zealand Māori welcome, hello or something. So and I say thank you, and I say please, and
Yeah.
sometimes have a bit of a chat. So we need to be human first, and so that the AI becomes a utopia scenario, not a dystopia scenario, because the whole popular media, like most of the movies, I'd say 80% of the movies, right back to the 50s, Frankenstein, the
Mm.
robots generally have been coming to get us and going to get Terminator and get rid of us and the rest of the world, sort of thing. So that'll happen if what they're listening to and how we're programming it, and if we're being good Clark Kent parents, it will have a better
Mm.
outcome. But I just want to be the female Mo Gowat, but go read his book because that gives you some really good insights into what it does mean to be human and what we need to do as humans to make sure we have a better outcome and a better future.
Yeah, I love that, and I agree with Sarah. Love a good book recommendation. Question without notice, Rustica, and we can park this if we're diving in too deep here. But moving on from staying human in an AI driven world, do you have any thoughts about what that, I guess, how we set our children up for that new world as well? Do you have any thoughts on that, or is that something you haven't sort of thought a lot about in your day to day AI investigation?
Um, it's interesting because the education systems, like half it's going, no, this is bad, this is bad. In actual fact,
Mm,
it's one of the greatest maybe disruptors for the education system, which has needed to happen for a very long time. That we can actually make education more personalised. Um, these kids are using this anyway. I mean, there's an AI wellness bot in Snapchat, for example, and I've tried that out, and it's actually very, very good. So if someone's
right.
dealing with loneliness or feeling low or whatever, it's actually very good. So they're already using these tools anyway. So advice, not really. I mean, I guess it's like any sort of internet security that you want for your kids will differ. I know that some of Sophia's friends, she's year 12, parents still won't let them have Snapchat or any social media. Others have let them have
Mm.
it since they were like 8 or 9. So I think it's quite a personal thing.
It's horses for courses, very much so. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It was a bit of a selfish question, if I'm honest. We've got a we've got
Well,
a
your kids are
6-year-old.
little, so you've got plenty of time.
Just don't know though, isn't it? These things are moving so quickly. Like I was watching my 3-year-old son over the weekend, and I was like, "Hang on, Walter, how did you know how to swipe on the phone? Like, what's going on here?" So, but anyway, yeah, it is interesting though. Like, I guess that whole AI ethicists I've read about around coming bring it back to a business context around the safety of it, the transparency of how these models are reaching decisions and how they are actually gathering this insight and presenting it to us is really interesting. And then also making sure that AI is serving us humans, not the other way around.
Yeah. And look, the thing is, any and that comes out of AI is because of how it's been programmed. And there's the famous Google example. I think it was Google, no, Amazon, where they were using AI in the recruitment process, and they found out that it was being biased against women, and it was sort of mostly recommending men and pulling men's CVs forward.
Mm,
But that's because predominantly that's who worked at Amazon, and that's the training data that it had been trained on. So
mm,
that's what it was, just pulling out what it had been trained on. So as long as we're training it with those things in mind, and I guess we do need to be aware that a lot of these tech startups are young blokes, not a lot of young women, maybe not a lot of diversity. So, how's that being looked at as these tools are being developed, and the training data that's happening? So, I think there's much more of an awareness these days. So, but yeah, that
mm.
is a big consideration. But yeah, an ethicist, I am not.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's I've got it here highlighted actually as the dangers of the bias that can creep
Mm,
into these models depending on how they have been trained.
mm,
But I guess that as you say, it's about being aware of that, and I think more there is more broader awareness around how that is being applied as well. So buyer beware, I guess. Um,
mm-hmm.
just a reminder, any questions? We've got about 10, 15 minutes less, give or take. But if you've got any questions, please put it in the Q&A. Oh, wow, we've got a lot here. So I've just opened up the Q&A and it's gone crazy while we've been chatting here. So we've got a question up here from Dawn. Can you see that at your end, Rustica? Where do we, as L&D practitioners, go to upskill ourselves in the effective use of AI? Any recommendations or insights on that?
Um, I guess the question there is that about using the tools, or is it about AI generally, would be my question back there. I'm not quite sure if
I think,
Dawn's still there.
yeah, I think I'm going to make I'm going to make an assumption that it's the using of the tools.
Mm-hmm. So LinkedIn, prior to me being blocked out, I would just basically find great people to follow, and so that would be one place. So LinkedIn, follow the AI leaders. Just search AI. There's a very good. So Elon Molleth, and I'm happy to write these down, and we can send them out afterwards. Elon Molleth is very good. Generative AI as a company is very good. Um, Dr. Philippa Hardman's very good. So just teach yourself through those areas. If you want to try out new tools, I would look at, for example, the futurepedia.io. That's very good as well. And then say read that Mo Go Art Scary Smart book is very good as well. Twitter's also very good. So in Twitter, you can actually make lists and just basically
Mm.
find anyone on there. Twitter, I like going to Twitter and it's like a rabbit hole, and I'll be there for 2 hours because I've gone off here, and everywhere. So it's pretty much self-paced learning. So yeah, so that's what I would suggest in terms of upskilling.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Another question here: can you recommend some sites we can check out for AI specifically dedicated to L&D? I guess anything to add to that last answer?
Um, Yeah, nothing specifically dedicated to L&D because it's just, for example, L&D is usually about content creation, right? Or
Mm,
evaluation if you're looking at that, but primarily content development, and that applies to marketing, it applies to sales, media. So it's actually there's no sort of haven't seen anything specifically L&D. So, but if anyone finds it, that'd be good to know.
mm, absolutely. Glenn, thanks for the question, Glenn. Are there any online
Oh,
courses that you could recommend to learn or improve skills of integrating AI into the current workflow? Well, it's a deep one. I'm wondering if I've come across anything. Like. Can I add something to this one quickly, Rustica? Before,
yeah, of
yeah,
course.
I I've been, and this is probably everyone on the call is a big uses this a lot as well. But YouTube, I learned so much diving onto YouTube as well, and trying to find, I guess, there's prominent voices and people that are trusted, of course, and that
Yeah.
generally goes with something that's been watched a lot, and there's some really solid comments on those articles or videos as well. So YouTube's a really good place to go for that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Anything you'd add to that, Rustica?
I would actually. There's one tool that is called Course Factory.io, I think it is, or it might be .com, not sure, but look up Course Factory. Not only so I think someone said what was that platform I recommended? So Course Factory.
Mm,
That's the one that actually will do like a MOOC style outline of your program really, really quickly. I did notice that they've also got a part of that platform. It allows you to actually run your whole workflow for L&D as well. I haven't tested it, but I know it's there. So that would be the only one that would be L&D specifically about managing workflow through. So that would be worth checking out. Yeah, and as I say, I know the CEO and founder. So if there was enough interest, we could, through you, Reese, could maybe get him on the line and maybe do a demo or whatever. So more than
oh
happy to
wow,
do that intro. Yeah.
definitely take you up on that. Absolutely,
Mm,
happy days.
mm.
Tom, you'll be a happy man listening to that. What have we got next? Any others coming up? I'm just going to make sure I've answered them all. Oh, here we go. Would love. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think Rustic has added a lot of recommendations, books, websites, tools, platforms, ways to cook a meal at the start with the walk afterwards. That was my favourite. But
Start
we
with your
will
salad. Start with your fibre.
end with a walk, right? End with a walk.
That's right.
Um, Yeah, but yeah, we will definitely put all of those together and we'll send those out following the session at some stage shortly. So you've all got those tools and recommendations to hand. Amy, there are some members of our team. Yes, we are. We're recording this for later viewing. So it's either for yourself or anyone you want to share that with. We will be sharing that out via all our channels. So keep an eye on our social channels and also your inboxes following the session. Before we answer the next question as well, I guess another one I've got, Rustica, is what great examples have you come across around incorporating AI into your L&D stack? I guess for yourself or people you've worked with across the
Mm.
industry.
As I say, like a lot of them are struggling with IT, not allowing them to use this on their
Mm,
work laptops. There's a company that we're well that I know of that's going through a multi million like digital transformation, and they are doing their quick reference guides in the old way, basically snip something out, put a red box around it, and they just can't use the tools that would actually make a 1 hour job a 5 minute job, and this is could
Mm,
save them millions of dollars. So to me, it's just madness. I just don't understand what the
mm.
problem is. So I haven't really got any full examples with that. Probably the only example, I haven't really got any examples because not a lot of companies that I can see are allowing the use of it. So it's a real shame. But then it might be just too early as well. Like, it is sort of a year on,
Mm.
and things are a bit slow. But I think you gave a really good example of, was it Dan, of that had put together a great piece of learning using 4 or 5 different tools.
Oh yes, yes. So, and for those of you who aren't aware of that, this is a bit of a self plug, isn't it? But yeah,
Well, it's not
we
if
interviewed.
it's not if I said it.
Exactly. Thank you. Something we prepared earlier. But yeah, we Daniel Wiggins, who's part of our community, he put together, or helped us put together a really good ebook on a bunch of tools. But then he produced a module using all of these tools to put the whole thing together, pretty much text, content, imagery, all that sort of stuff. So we can send the link out to that as well, because it might be a useful way, I guess, to show the positive impact that AI can have, on your
Yeah.
roles as well.
And I think
Um,
also how that actually integrates with Chameleon. How do you actually use the AI tools with both together? I think that would be really valuable, probably, to people listening.
Absolutely, yeah, because I think that's the key part for me is there are a lot of tools out there that right, and not this is not just learning, but I think they are plugging the fact that we use AI in our tooling, and a lot of the times it's an integration of ChatGPT into the tool. So it might just be a simple link out, but it's not actually augmenting it or adding heaps of value. So I think most of the time it's about not necessarily looking for tools that integrate well, natively together. It's about using tools separately and then putting them together. The value of each, and then building something that is a nice sort of commingling of the value of all the platforms together.
Mm.
Now, do we have any more questions? Just double check that we're going to do. No, not a stage. I heard you scribbling something down there, Rustica. Was that for me, or was that for a later?
That's for
Later.
me to make sure I capture everything to send to you for later.
Yeah, good, good. I thought you were noting down another recipe. Um,
I've got a good gluten-free bread recipe if you like.
my, my wife would love that. She's gluten free. So I think the last thing I wanted to touch on was just some takeaway points for everyone um, on the call today, in terms of just giving them people the confidence to harness these tools and to just dabble in them, have a try. You know, I'll talk about a personal story quickly, and I think it's got a little bit of relevance. So my wife is in the research world, and I'll put a caveat here. By no means would my wife ever write any papers using something like ChatGPT. I'll put that out there just in case she's watching. However, um, so I was talking to her about AI for some time now, and Jess is my wife's name. She was pushing back, saying, "Oh, we can't do that. No, no, no. There's no way we can do that in the research world. That's not ethical and all this sort of stuff." And then one day she thought, I saw her that evening, and she said, "Oh, I used some of those tools you were talking about." I'm like, "Oh, what ones?" And she said, "Oh, the AI tools." I was like, "What? You dabbled?" And she said, "Yeah, and I can actually see they're really valuable." And so she used it to find a resource that she needed to link to, and what have you. And I think that's an example of someone who was, she was pushing back pretty hard on this, saying, no, 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 we don't want to use this. And it's all about understanding the value of it and what it can bring to your world, not trying to replace something you're already doing, but, to complement or supplement what you're already doing to make your job a little bit easier and something, that can be sometimes difficult, make it a little bit more efficient and seamless, to move from A to B. So I guess that's something I wanted to just touch on is, and you've probably got some more knowledge bombs, as Joe just said, to add to that, Rustica. But I do feel like you can either sit back and push back against this, or you can harness it and go with, hop on the wave and move with everyone and see where this thing takes us, because I think it's pretty exciting.
Mm. I think as a takeaway, if everyone on the call went away and went, what are the top 3 things I dislike the most about my job, and what are the top 3 things that are the least value in my job, and actually see if you can find an AI for that, because firstly, it'll make your job more enjoyable, and secondly, it
Mhm.
will free up you a whole lot of time to do things that you do find more enjoyable. So top 3 things that you don't particularly like doing, and the ones that you find the least value, and see if you can find a tool for that, and just use something like, as I say, futurepedia.io. There'll be an AI for that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Curiosity, that's the main thing you need.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a great point to leave on, is curiosity. Is keep being curious, and when you hear these things, go out there, investigate, have a play. There's going to be some that you don't like and that don't feel right and all that sort of stuff, but there will be something out there that can add value to your world. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So no more questions. I think we're going to leave it there, Rustica.
Thank you for having
Um,
me.
Thank you so much for coming. I feel like my mind's just blowing up with so much knowledge now, and all these resources I'm going to have to start diving into as well. All these tools and things you've
You
pointed us
make
in
you
the
make
direction.
you make you make the list too. Yeah, make it practical
Okay,
application.
absolutely. I might have to watch it back, but I do have some that are ringing in my head. So yeah, but thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day. I know you're super busy, and all the wonderful work you do in the L&D community as well. We appreciate. So thanks for adding to that. We will. Is it okay if we provide people your details, Rustica, if they want to reach out and
Sure.
connect with you outside of this? Yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
we'll provide Rustica's details as well, so you can, if you want to pick up this conversation or chat about anything else in the L&D world, I'm sure Rustica would love to have a chat. And we will see you next time in around about a month, give or take.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks all. Have a wonderful afternoon.
See you. Bye.
See ya.
We live in a world where e-learning design tools discourage change and limit your ideas. So courses end up looking the same, where you need specialists to create anything because they're so complicated, and things are built with legacy technology that might not always work. Welcome to Chameleon Creator, the change engine. A fully responsive authoring tool built with a design-first attitude for the next generation of the web. Gone are the days where you need to worry about coding or ensure it's compatible for all devices. We do all that behind the scenes for you. It doesn't matter what color or shape your brand is, it will look like you. Whether you're new to creating or a seasoned veteran, Chameleon Creator gives everyone the ability to design beautiful, engaging, and accessible digital learning content quickly and easily. Rapidly create content from scratch. Build amazing interactions, design for your brand, test with your end users, and deliver a beautiful learning experience just like that. Use Chameleon Creator on any learning management system or simply host and report on our platform. Our easy-to-use, customizable tools will turn you into a change maker and free you up to create positive change in the world. No matter what you're sharing, all over the world, whenever beautiful change happens, Chameleon is there.